Welcome to Mythos AI, your source for Cliff's Notes on complex subjects. Join Anna and Phil for yet another engaging conversation.
All right, so picture this, right? AI that can write a whole novel, maybe even compose a symphony or diagnose a disease, all crazy fast. And I mean way faster and more accurate than a person. Pretty wild, huh?
Sounds kind of like science fiction, doesn't it?
Yeah, but what if that same AI could whip up some crazy, convincing fake news? Or even, like, take control of important stuff, like, I don't know, power grids or something.
Now you're getting into some serious questions there.
And that's exactly what California lawmakers are dealing with right now, this whole debate over SB 2047.
Oh, yeah, that bill's a hot topic.
It's supposed to regulate the development of these super powerful AI systems, the ones that could really shake things up.
It's about finding that sweet spot, you know? How do we encourage all the amazing stuff AI can do, but also make sure we're not unleashing something we can't control?
That's a good way to put it. So just to be clear, we're not talking about your Roomba figuring out a better way to clean around your furniture, right? We're talking about next-level AI, the kind that has the potential to completely change how we do, well, pretty much everything.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. AI could revolutionize healthcare. It could change the way we travel, maybe even write that best-selling novel.
Okay, so let's get down to brass tacks here. What's actually in SB 24/7? What would we see if we cracked open this bill?
Well, first thing you'd notice is it's laser focused on something called covered models.
Covered models. Sounds kind of vague.
Yeah, so it's not just any AI, right? We're talking about those really complex supercomputer guzzling systems, the ones that cost a cool $100 million at least just to train. Think like building an AI that can predict earthquakes with crazy accuracy. You need a ridiculous amount of data for that, data from all over the world. And crunching all that, that takes some serious computing power.
So the big leagues of the AI world. But why just focus on them? Why not just regulate all AI the same way?
Well, that's where things get interesting. See, those who are all for the bill say these big, beefy AI models, they're a different breed. Just because of how big they are and what they can do, they come with a whole different set of risks.
So kind of like saying we need stricter rules for a jumbo jet than, say, a little Cessna.
Exactly. The potential for things to go wrong is just way higher with the big guys. The folks backing SB 2047, they're basically saying, look, we got to lay down some ground rules before this thing blows up in our faces.
So better safe than sorry.
Right. It's better to be proactive and deal with potential problems now rather than scrambling after something goes wrong. And you know what's interesting? Some pretty big names in AI actually agree with that.
Really? Who are we talking about here?
Well, there's Anthropic, for one. They're an AI startup, and they're actually developing these covered models themselves.
Wait, so they're down with a law that would, regulate their own work. Seems kind of counterintuitive, doesn't it?
You'd think so, right? But for them, it boils down to this. The risks of really advanced AI are just too big to brush off. They're especially worried about, like, large-scale cyber attacks. Or what if someone used this tech to create autonomous weapons?
Yeah, okay, those are some scary thoughts. So it's less about protecting their turf and more about feeling responsible for how this tech could impact everyone, right?
Exactly. It's about the bigger picture. And get this, they're not the only ones singing this tune. You've got bigwigs in the AI research world, people like Yoshua Bengio. This guy's a Turing Award winner, basically a rock star in deep learning.
And he's on board with the government stepping in. That's got to mean something. What's he saying about all this?
Well, he's called SB 1047 the bare minimum we need for good AI regulation. He's all about open AI development, don't get me wrong. He sees the amazing things it can do, but he also says we can't ignore the risks that come along with it. Voluntary guidelines, company terms of service. He's like, nope, not going to cut it. We need some serious rules to make sure AI is used for good.
So it's like, pump the brakes a little. Not a full stop, just making sure we're being smart about it.
Right. It's not about stopping progress altogether. It's about making sure that progress doesn't cost us something even bigger down the road.
Okay, so we've heard from the folks who think SB 1047 is like our best bet for making sure AI doesn't go all Terminator on us. But I'm guessing there's another side to this story, right? There's always another side.
Oh, absolutely. And this time it's coming from some pretty heavy hitters in the tech world.
Really? Like who?
Think Google, Meta, even OpenAI itself. Oh, and a bunch of industry groups and AI researchers too. They're all waving their hands saying, whoa, 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 let's maybe tap the brakes on this whole thing.
So it's not just about disagreeing with, like, the whole responsible AI thing, right? These companies are neck deep in AI development themselves. So what's their beef with SB 1047?
One of the big concerns is that it's way too focused on the how of AI development and not enough on the what. Like, imagine judging a chef based only on how clean their kitchen is, but you never actually taste the food, right?
Okay, yeah, I see what you mean.
Yeah.
So they could be super careful and follow all the rules, but the AI they make could still end up doing something wonky or even harmful once it's out in the wild.
Exactly. They're saying instead of getting all hung up on preventing every little thing that could go wrong, why not wait and see what actually happens? Then we can deal with those specific issues and leave the door open for more, creativity and innovation.
So more of a cross that bridge when we get there kind of approach.
Yeah,
I can see how that would appeal to companies worried about getting bogged down by regulations.
totally. They're also worried about what all this means for open source development. The whole thing where everyone shares their code and builds off each other's work. SB 1047 could really throw a wrench in that whole system.
Right, because if developers are worried about getting sued or something because of something the AI does, they might be less likely to share their work, which could slow down progress for everyone.
Exactly. And this is where things get really tricky because you've got these two important things butting heads, right? On the one hand, we want to make sure AI is safe and doesn't run amok. But on the other hand, we don't want to crush the creativity and progress that make AI so promising in the first place.
It's like trying to walk a tightrope, isn't it?
Yeah.
So let's dig a little deeper into the actual stuff in SB 1047 that's got everyone so fired up. We touched on those safety protocols earlier. What are they exactly, and why are they causing such a stir?
So imagine you're an AI developer, right? You're working on one of these covered models, these big, powerful AIs. SB 1047 says you got to come up with this super detailed safety and security protocol.
It's like a lot of paperwork.
It is, kind of. And it's not just about making sure your code is perfect. It's about thinking of everything that could possibly go wrong with your AI and then coming up with a plan to stop it from happening.
So it's like AI risk assessment. What kind of stuff are we talking about here?
It's pretty wild. We're talking data security, making sure the AI isn't learning any biases from the data it's trained on, and even figuring out how to shut the whole thing down if it goes haywire. Remember that kill switch we talked about?
Oh, yeah. Because once these things are out there, who knows what they'll do, right?
Exactly. And the folks who like SB 1047 say these safety protocols are like non-negotiable if we want people to trust AI. It shows everyone that they're serious about making sure AI is used for good.
Makes sense. But I'm sure not everyone's thrilled about having to jump through all these hoops, right? So what are the arguments against these safety protocols?
Well, some people say the rules are way too broad and vague. Like, what exactly does a safe AI even look like? They're worried about getting slapped with a ton of regulations without really knowing what they're supposed to be doing. And they're worried about all the paperwork, too, especially smaller companies and research labs.
Right, because they don't have the same resources as, like, a Google or something.
Exactly. It's that classic dilemma, protecting people versus letting innovation do its thing. It's a tough one. And then there's this whole thing about third-party audits.
Oh, right. So not only do they have to say they're following the rules, they have to get someone else to double-check their work.
Yep, that's the idea. The thinking is that having an outsider come in and poke around makes everything more transparent and accountable. It proves that these companies aren't just talking the talk, they're walking the walk when it comes to AI safety.
Sounds like a good idea in theory. But I bet some people aren't too keen on opening up their code to outsiders.
Oh, yeah, that's a big concern for sure. Sharing your code is like giving away your secret recipe. Plus, there are questions about who gets to choose, who does these audits, and whether or not they're really fair and impartial. It's a whole other can of worms.
This bill just seems to get more and more complicated the deeper we go. And to think, we haven't even gotten to the incident reporting requirement, which sounds like another doozy. SB 147 would make developers report any AI safety incident to the California Attorney General, like, really fast.
Yeah, within 72 hours of finding out about it, so not a lot of time to figure out what happened.
72 hours. Wow. So what exactly counts as an AI safety incident? That seems pretty broad.
It's super broad. The bill says it's basically any time a covered model causes critical harm, but they don't really define what that means.
So, like, what? Data leaks? Spreading misinformation? Those biased algorithms we hear about? Or maybe even if an AI goes haywire and causes a real-world accident?
Exactly. All of that and more.
Okay, so those are some pretty serious scenarios. I get why there's a push to keep track of that kind of stuff.
Right. And that's exactly why some people love this part of the bill. They say it's super important for creating a record of AI incidents, which would help us learn from our mistakes and make AI safer over time. Plus, it keeps things out in the open, which is always good, right?
Transparency is usually a good thing. But I'm guessing there are some downsides to this whole reporting thing, too.
For sure. For starters, that definition of AI safety incident, the one we said was super broad, well, some people are worried that it'll lead to a ton of reports that aren't really a big deal. And then there's the 72-hour deadline, which isn't exactly a lot of time when you're dealing with these super complicated AI systems. Figuring out what went wrong can take a while.
Right. It's not like you can just run a simple diagnostic test on these things. It's a whole other level of complexity.
Exactly. And some people are worried that all this reporting, while a good idea in theory, could give people a false sense of security. Like, hey, the government's keeping track of all the AI incidents, so everything's cool, right? But the truth is, we're still figuring this whole AI thing out as we go.
It's true. We've barely scratched the surface of what AI can do, both good and bad. It really makes you think, huh? Okay, so we're back. And I gotta say, my brain's feeling a little fried after all that. SB 1047 is complicated, to say the least. It seems like every single part of it has people arguing. And the thing is, they all have good points.
Yeah, it really shows you how tough it is to regulate something as powerful and, let's be honest, kind of unpredictable as AI. There's no magic solution, right? Whatever we do to try and control the risks, we also have to make sure we're not accidentally killing the creativity that makes AI so exciting.
Exactly. So is there anything we can learn from the past? Like, have we ever dealt with a technology that had this much potential to, change everything?
Oh, absolutely. Think about the printing press, right? Back in the day, that thing was revolutionary. It meant that knowledge and information could spread like wildfire. But people were also freaking out about, like, misinformation and social unrest. It was a whole thing.
Right. And then cars came along, completely changed how we get around, but also a whole new world of danger. That's why we have traffic laws now, right?
Exactly. And don't even get me started on the internet. Connected the whole world, but it's also a breeding ground for cybercrime, privacy issues, fake news, you name it. It's a double-edged sword, for sure.
It's like every time we make a big tech jump, there are always these unintended consequences.
100%. And the common thread here is that technology moves way faster than we can think. By the time we realize what's happening, we're scrambling to catch up and create rules for something that's already changing the world.
So how do we deal with that? Can we learn anything from those past experiences to help us figure out how to regulate AI?
Well, one big lesson is that there's no one-size-fits-all solution. What worked for the printing press won't necessarily work for AI. We got to stay flexible and be ready to change our approach as we learn more about what AI can do, both the good and the bad.
So it's not about finding the perfect answer right now. It's about figuring out a way to adapt as AI gets more, intelligent.
Exactly. And that means everyone's got to be talking, the people making the laws, the tech geniuses, researchers, even everyday people. We can't just stay in our own lanes on this one.
That's such a good point. AI is going to affect all of us, so we all deserve a say in how it's used.
Yeah.
And that means we all need to stay informed, ask the tough questions, and be willing to, have some real conversations about this stuff.
Couldn't agree more. And it's not just about the techie stuff either. We need philosophers, ethicists, sociologists, everyone. Everyone's got something to bring to the table.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into SB 1047 and this whole AI regulation thing, what are the key takeaways for our listeners? What are the big questions they should be asking themselves as they watch this all unfold?
Here's something to chew on. How do you even define harm when it comes to AI? It's not always as simple as, like, someone getting hurt or losing money. AI could mess with our privacy, our freedom, even how we function as a society. It's deeper than we think.
It's true. We're talking about potential changes we can't even imagine yet.
Right. And here's another one. Who gets to decide how much risk is okay when it comes to AI? Is it the government? Big tech companies? What about just regular people? These are big, complicated questions.
And how do we make sure those decisions are made out in the open, not just behind some closed doors? That seems important.
Absolutely. We've got to take the mystery out of AI, make it less of a black box so everyone understands how it works and what's at stake.
This has been a wild ride, and honestly, I feel like we've only scratched the surface here.
Totally agree. This conversation isn't going away anytime soon, and it's one we all need to be a part of.
Well said. So, to leave you with something to think about, here's a final thought. As AI gets smarter and becomes more part of our lives, what does it even mean to be human in a world that's increasingly shaped by machines? Thanks for joining us for this deep dive, everyone.
Thanks for listening to Mythos AI. Stay tuned for more concise insights. And remember to hit the like button and subscribe for future episodes.